listening to some Tibetan-influenced American who I have recorded is into banging consorts for the sake of enlightenment. And after reading some of this stuff that the Tibetans do about the chakras and Dantian specifically, the idea of the cinnabar field or whatever they call it at a point 4 fingers below the navel and 4 fingers in. Now, I do get that. I do get a lot of sensation there, and I found that if I breathe in, I take the anapanasati long breaths, and I breathe into that point. So this is the sort of belly breathing. It switches everything on, huge thrills, instant pity, not much sukha, but it gets there because it is sort of, it's intense. And you've got the sort of sense of energy going up the spine, all the rest of this Kundalini stuff that they write about, which is all the new age people are into, and so on.
Yeah, greed.
And I don't know.
It's a kind of a greed. A greed for thrills, a greed for excitement, a greed for experience.
Yes, I see. So I don't know whether this is a quick way into piti and sukha, which I think it is, or just some sort of internal wank. You know, a sort of...
While you were describing these words, you were touching this side of the nose.
Was I?
No, the other side.
The other, really?
Yeah, that one.
Didn't notice it. Yeah, okay. Go on.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if you were touching the side of your nose, not because Santa Claus does it, but because that was an indication of the technique.
No, it was not an indication of the technique. The technique involves sitting with the hands in the lap, usually in this sort of, not necessarily interlinked seems to get too, you have to, the interlinked fingers become intrusive. Holding them one on top of the other seems to work better. It's difficult to get away from the sensation. I see that, what's his face, Buddhadasa, seemed to spend a lot of time with his hands interlinked. You see him like that in pictures. But that seems to be to take the mind too much to the hands. But this, I mean, what I'm really asking is, if I do this, if I use this as what I think is a quick way to get to piti and sukha, am I doing it wrong? Because if you are learning to play a musical instrument,
asking the question, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah,
is a slow way to piti.
Well, yes, it is. But then you see, if you're learning a musical instrument, which is a thing you talk about quite a lot, you've got to do the fingering right. I mean,
right.
You know, if you can maybe
and hand mudras.
Sorry?
That in fact the word mudra. Have you heard of the word mudra?
I have indeed.
Yes, okay. So the word mu actually is the word for hand. And so mudras are positions of the hands.
Yeah.
And that there's many different ways to do it, but none of them are wrong. But what the hand mudras are designed for is to get people to pay attention to their hands, which is part of the body. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether you have the hands interlaced or whether you've got them on top of each other or whether you're doing this
Oh,
Or
yeah.
there's also one that is called touch the earth, where you've got your hand over your knee like that so that you
Yeah.
can just touch the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are mudras to help us stay in the present moment.
Right.
And we don't have to worry about getting the mudras right, because when we're worried about getting the mudras right, we're not in the present moment of the mudra itself. We're thinking about the mudras rather than experiencing them.
Uh-huh.
And so be aware of your hands, the positions of your hands, the touch and the feel of the hands as an aid to being in touch with the body, feeling the body, which is where you're going to be also experiencing piti sukha, will be in the body. A feeling of relaxation, a feeling of well-being, a feeling of tickling, tingling, shivers,
Yes, but you
all
see,
kinds of things.
this is what concerns me about it. It's all this. I mean, again, I've been recording, I've been typing up what I'm doing. Do I treat this as good or dangerous? I just put my mind in there, and it is all welling up now as I type. It's taking my mind off the typing, but I can feel it going from there. This is the energy flow stuff, all the way up into my head. And if I let them come, I get big thrills through the body.
Okay.
I'm now getting them just
Do you like it? Do you like it?
yes and no, because it feels like a kind of possession, as though I'm giving my body over to some kind of force. I do not see it as an external force. I suppose that is what is worrying me, because, it's sort of possession and all that kind of thing.
I don't know anything about possession
Well, the
other than
Christians are
they
big
say
on,
that
they talk about it, demonic
possession is
possession.
9/10 of the law, so they say.
Yeah,
If you've got it in your hand and that other guy says it belongs to me, he's going to have trouble getting it from you because you've already got it.
yep, that's right.
Okay. So the question is, are you being possessed or are you possessing something?
Well, I'm possessing something to the extent, well, am I being possessed? If I let it go, if I let it run, it feels like I'm being possessed. If I damp it down, then I've got control of it.
Okay. So that's something to play with.
Right?
Okay. What I mean by playing with it, can you let it go and still own it, still possess it because you can control it? Or does somehow you lose control of it because you let it go? So you can play with that. I'm not asking you to answer the question now or get confused or anything. I'm asking you to experiment.
I can play with it. I can play with it. I do play with it because obviously the allowing it to go, letting it rip, and then calming down produces a great and very pleasant sensation
Okay.
of happy calmness.
Then I don't see any questions about it. And yet you're confused and asking questions.
That's right. I'm confused and asking questions because, I mean, for instance, let me tell you a little story. Well, no, getting too.
Instead, here's the thing to do though, is that when you catch yourself through mindfulness being confused and asking questions, you can put those questions aside and say, I don't know the answer to that. I don't need to know the answer to that. I'm okay without knowing the answer to that. Let me just sit here and be happy.
Well, yes, yes,
That in
yes,
fact, questioning and confusions and doubts are a hindrance.
of course. Of
Of
course.
course.
But
So catch that, just like I caught you doing it. You can catch yourself saying, I don't have to have any answers. I'm having too much fun to deal with answers. I'm having too much fun. I don't have to deal with questions at all. That in fact, that's the major reason why Westerners do not get anywhere with Anapanasati, is because they spend their time trying to get it right, asking questions, doing it right, more important than enjoying themselves.
I'm going to ask you the other question, of course, that I've asked so many times before. The Anapanasati Sutta takes you on from there to calmness, looking at what's happening in the mind, and the contents of the mind, and so
And
on.
gladdening the mind.
Gladdening the
Yes.
mind, yes, and
Number
then,
step 9, and then gladdening the mind.
indeed, how you do the other stuff, like
You mean
sharpening the
the
mind and so on. I have no idea I don't know what that
liberating the
means.
mind and
I
making the
don't know.
mind samadhi mind. They call it concentrating. It's not concentration. Concentration has the quality of removing things that are not important. And samadhi has the quality of bringing everything together.
Uh-huh.
A little point that I make about that is with an alarm clock, what makes the alarm clock tick? And the answer to that, oh, there's a spring. When the spring is wound up, the clock will tick.
Mm.
So we take the clock apart and take the spring out, because that's concentrating the clock right down to the essence of the spring. But the
Right.
spring does not an alarm clock make. You take that spring out of the alarm clock, it don't tick anymore. Okay, so we need the whole show. This is what step 10 and 11 of Anapanasati, no, 11 and 12, is to bring everything together. The samadhi mind, which means comfort, at ease, no doubts, no worries, there's safety, security, comfort, satisfaction, and success. And we bring those qualities together in the mind. And that is what liberates the mind. What does it liberate the mind from? The doubts, the curiosities, the questions, the confusion. You don't leave any room for that kind of stuff, because that tears the mind apart and separates it, rather than letting it be unified and whole. It's a very standard thing. I really congratulate you for the success that you get, but then you tear it apart because you keep asking questions about it.
I keep asking questions because, having learnt in other fields that there is a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things.
Right, and asking and questions in this way is the wrong way to do it. Trying to get it right, trying to understand it, is the way of keeping us from actually having the happy life. You try to get it right. That's our society. Our society has taught you well that you're supposed to do it right. And so long as you're trying to do it right, you'll never get it.
Once upon a time, incidentally, I saw a US Navy, obviously an engineering ship of some kind attached. It was in the same harbor as a very large American aircraft carrier. And on the back of the bridge, the what I call the tender, the bridge was well towards the front of the ship, and there was a stern after castle, whatever you want to call it, and there was a large area in the middle where obviously work was done, and presumably helicopters landed and one thing and another. On the back of the bridge, there was written in large letters, "Do it right, do it safely," which always amused me. But that's what you have to do, you see, if you're maintaining your U.S. Navy helicopters and so on.
Right. But the U.S. Navy helicopter is part of the U.S. military,
Mm-hmm.
which is the U.S. war machine. They call it the Department of Defense. But we're not here defending anything. We're, in fact, not trying to get it right and make everybody in the world behave according to our right. So let's leave the Navy. Let's get out of the Navy. I was in the Navy, by the way.
I know.
I've got the one tattoo to prove it.
Yes, you've said. Can I ask something? I was watching I was watching after the event your latest U.S. Sangha meeting, in which you were talking to the people there about breathing, anapanasati, and you said to them in turn, "Are you taking long, deep breaths now?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, given that the Anapanasati Sutta starts, well, after all the stuff about what people do, it starts with going into the forest, sitting on a pile of leaves, etc. Seclusion. Why are you telling people to take these deep breaths when they're obviously not in seclusion, they're in a meeting?
Yes, the answer to that is that it's okay to practice any place, any time. It's to get started. We need to be in seclusion. That's where we start. We start
Yeah.
with seclusion. That in fact you could say that half the practice is seclusion, and in that half is where we also make friends with ourselves, we nurture ourselves, etc. And then the second half is out in the world where we're nurturing ourselves and the world, and we're paying attention to the world while we're paying attention to our breathing. Is that we incorporate, that we start with seclusion, and then we add in, because there's nobody that I know of, occasionally, very occasionally, will someone choose seclusion for the long haul, especially in the beginning. But it's always a mix, in and out, in and out, in and out. So you go into seclusion to practice, so that when you come out of the seclusion, you practice.
Well, I don't know. You seem to get a lot of people going into it for the long haul, doing 3-year retreats in caves and things, if you listen to all the interviews.
I know, but all of that is the spectacular part. That's all the big news. You know that in the journalism schools, they have the phrase of, if it bleeds, it leads.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that bleeds over into, let us call it, the spiritual life, in the sense that people wanting to hear these spectacular stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's a lot of jokes around them too. But the point is that let's not look for the spectacular. Let's not look for the super duper special. Let's start being satisfied with the reality. What's real right now? So we go to the hut, we go to the forest, we go to the foot of the tree, or a pile of straw or leaves,
Mm-hmm.
and we sit down and we practice throwing those thoughts of confusion and doubts and worries and getting it right. And we throw those things out and we practice. Everything's okay. We nurture ourselves rather than being critical. In fact, if you think of it critical, that's questioning, trying to get it right, a set of rules, a set of standards.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is practicing that in a different way, almost upside down, in the sense of we're not trying to follow the rules. We're not trying to get it right. We're not trying to do anything. We're quitting all of that and just relaxing instead. Coming into a state of no fear. I'm not afraid. There's nothing on the porch here that's dangerous. The only thing that's dangerous is me not getting it right.
But what
So
could
let's
be
stop trying to
dangerous?
go ahead.
What could be dangerous, though, is what is in my own mind. If I'm, if I am I'm letting things happen, which are obviously strange. I mean, this is not this sort of energy flow stuff, sensations of energy flowing within the body. It's strange. It's,
Okay, but
isn't
it
it?
can be strange in the sense of unfamiliar, but can you still be in a state of it's okay? Yeah, it's strange, but it's all right. Never
I
mind.
think, well, it's
The teachings,
okay. The equanimity. No, it's you want more of it. Or well, the greed comes in there. You see, because you want it. You want it. You want
mhm,
the sensation. You
as
want these
opposed to
thrilling
just merely liking
sensations.
them and being satisfied with the way that they are, we want to make them better. We want to get
Yep,
it extra
you
right.
do. You do.
Okay.
Indeed.
So, well, you do.
I do. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course I do.
All right. So the invitation now is to pay attention that you're doing that. And because you're trying to get it right, you're actually not enjoying it the way that it actually is. So start paying attention to this is good enough
Right.
rather than paying attention to I've got to get it right and I've got questions and all of that stuff. Just let those questions sit aside. I don't have to know everything in order to be joyful, happy, satisfied, content. And then the success is not success in getting it right. The success is enjoying it and being satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I can be satisfied. Yeah, I don't have to know everything. A good example out of very, very many is that when all of the astrophysicists had their little package together about the Big Bang and Einstein and all of that kind of stuff, they were kind of satisfied and content. Then they launched the James Webb, which is getting new data. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of being satisfied with the new data and satisfied that they don't quite understand what's going on, they're all in a great big flurry because they don't like being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And their old ideas were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But they can sit there and just enjoy
Nobody
that they
likes
found
being wrong.
something new. And they don't understand it yet, but they can still be joyful. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's with college professors. The example that I would use sometime is that the president of the university or provost or dean throws a party, and all of the professors in that school come into the same room. Now, there is in that group, a huge body of knowledge, and yet they'll probably start arguing with each other over something or another because they cling to that knowledge. Now you walk into that room and you've got all of these college professors, tenured elders,
Mm-hmm.
emeritus, and all of that kind of stuff. You don't have hardly any of the knowledge that they have in sum total, but you can still be happy. You don't have to know everything. That's one of the points that the Buddha made in the Sutta number 12 in the Majjhima Nikaya called the Lion's Roar, is that he can be happy and content and satisfied with any group of people in any audience,
No, no.
whether it's in the royal palace or where he is. He does not have to know. He can be in parliament and he doesn't have to know all the laws, but he can still be the star of the show.
Oh yeah, well they love it. They love it when you tap their knowledge and tell them to get them to tell you how clever they are.
Well, that's because knowing and getting it right is very important in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
Yeah.
so many people are miserable, is because they don't think that they've got it right. And the way that we're practicing is that whatever we're doing right now is good enough. We don't have to make an improvement to that. We're going to take the right effort to stop wanting it to be better and take the right effort to let it be okay the way that it is.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the hardest part of all, I think.
Yes, that's why the Buddha, you've heard this statement before, that the teaching of the Buddha is subtle and it is profound.
Yes.
Okay. Why is it that way? Is because it goes against the way that we were taught to think. You were taught to think, just like on that ship, to get it right.
Do it safely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To get it right, to do it correctly, to hup 2, 3, 4, get in line, follow the rules, follow the orders. If you want to be military, that's the life. But normally, no matter how high you go up into the military, you're not going to be a happy man. You're just going to be following orders, trying to get it right.
Yes. Well,
so in our world, we're not going to try to get it right. We're not trying to follow orders anymore. We're here just to relax and enjoy our lives.
that is so counterintuitive.
It is, well, it is intuitive, and
Well,
the way that you're taught was counterintuitive. That's why kids grow so slowly.
I suppose
Go
that's
pick up
right.
your, go clean your room, pick up your toys, pick up your clothes, do what you're told to do your homework. And finally we get it drilled into us that we got to follow the rules and do what we're told and get it right. And so it's counter now, but not counterintuitive. It's counter everything that society has given you. That's what makes it subtle and profound, is because it really is intuitive that I don't have to do what I'm told to do. And I don't have to be afraid that I'm not doing what I was told to do. I can just enjoy my life. I don't have to get the jhana right. If you try to get the jhana right, you'll never get it. Because trying to get it right is a hindrance to actually enjoying it.
Yeah. Another question arises. Well,
Can you stop having those questions arise for a moment and just relax instead?
well, technique. You're out in the world. You get triggered by things, right?
Well,
Now,
can I see that I'm being triggered and then stop being triggered? Right then and there, do I have the right effort to pull those triggers back into place before they fire the bullet?
well, it seems to me that what you're aiming for is rather to take the shells out of the chambers, so that the trigger falls on an empty chamber and the gun doesn't go off.
That's another analogy, a good way to put it.
But that
Yeah,
is
you're not
that's a,
loaded.
but
You're
that's a long way down the line, not getting
No, it's
loaded.
not. It's right now. Take those bullets out of the chamber right now.
The
So that the next
question was
time that
going
trigger
to
is
be
pulled, it doesn't go anywhere. Just snip.
the question was going to be if you feel yourself triggered, is a good technique to apply the other trigger? Use the triggers to trigger the happiness.
Yes, trigger by
You
taking a deep breath.
you
That's a
can
good trigger.
so yes. Okay.
To see that you're triggered, to look at the mechanism of how you go from being triggered into going off. In the way that gun goes off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. With fire and smoke and force and all that kind of stuff that
Lots of
humans
noise,
know.
yes.
Yeah, lots of noise.
Yeah. You
And
start
so when you're
shouting.
triggered, can you see that triggering and then stop?
Well, somewhere down the line, one day, perhaps.
No, do it next time, this time. Every time
Yeah.
that it happens,
Yeah.
don't look off
Yeah.
into hoping for the future. Can you stop it right now?
Well, maybe. The answer is maybe.
Never mind, start again and stop it again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is perhaps enough.
Okay, let's
This
stop.
is perhaps enough. Okay. I really, well, I find this very difficult being recorded, though. I mean, now a whole lot of people out there know what goes on in my head,
And they're
and
very jealous of you also.
I really don't. I find this very difficult.
Well, that's because you have a thought of danger.
Damn right, I have a thought of danger. I
Well,
have a
then
thought
have
of
the thought
being.
of, never mind, I'm not in danger. Nobody's going to know anything anyway. They're more caring about themselves than they are caring about you.
Well,
So
I'm
you can
sure
just
that's.
relax and forget about it. There's nothing to it.
I'm sure this is right, but there's a whole lot of your followers who now know that there's a there's an old guy out there who has weird things happening in his mind, you know.
Well,
And,
that's not the interesting part. The interesting part that I'm hearing about you is that they're jealous because you're making progress.
maybe.
And you're very valuable to them. You give them that oomph that, oh, if this Gerry can get it, so can I.
Yes. Yeah,
So
that's
you're
one of the
very
great things.
valuable. But you have
Yes,
thoughts of it's dangerous somehow.
of course.
Well,
Of
then
course.
see those thoughts of danger and say, of course not, and stop them.
But what if it is dangerous?
Well, that's the whole point. In reality, it couldn't possibly be dangerous.
But what
In
if it is?
reality, nobody knows where you live. They don't know your telephone number. They don't know your last name. They don't know anything. They can put you in real danger.
Yeah, that's why yes, that's why I want to keep it that way, and I won't sign up to things. But there we
Me
are.
too. The
Mm.
internet is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that I'm quite safe, even though, in fact, the ones that would consider themselves big enemies of mine are other meditation teachers. But I
Do
don't see
they
them as dangerous.
see you as enemies or just?
Idiot. Okay, so I'm not a danger. I'm just an idiot.
Well, you're just running some other sort of program that isn't that they probably regard as you're not getting it right according to their interpretation. You
Well, that's let them worry about that, or if they would stop worrying about getting it right, they could enjoy themselves as much as I do.
know.
I'm having a ball here.
Well,
But you can see on any of the videos that the proof is in the putting. And what I'm putting out is joy,
mm-hmm.
happiness. With all of your questions, you can't make me feel bad or sad.
They're not intended to make you feel bad or sad. They're intended to make me feel better.
Okay.
There you
So
are.
let's feel better together. So you stop trying to get it right
Really?
and just enjoy that you've got it enough. Enough already. You've
Enough
got enough
already.
information.
Yes.
Your
Enough
tank is
already.
full. You don't need 300 gallons of gasoline when you've only got a 50-gallon tank.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Yes.
So let's be satisfied with our little tank and be happy.
Well, so long as it's full, because
Well, it
there
doesn't
is.
have to be full. It's just drivable so long as it's
Mm,
not empty. Half a tank is wonderful.
well, there's a saying in aviation that the three worst things in aviation are altitude above you, a runway behind you, and the fuel you left in the Bowser back at the last airfield. But
Well,
there you are.
but the whole point is that from the very beginning, with Apollo, the Wright brothers, the Malaysian Airlines that went down, and all of that kind of stuff, is that airplanes are dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
So I fly without an airplane because
Really?
airplanes are dangerous.
You're managing all these cities then, you're all on and flying about the place.
Well, good enough. Flying by the seat of my pants, but not flying through the air. Just sit and enjoy.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't need a bunch of cities, towns, villages, metropolises, or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, they seem to be very keen on that sort of thing in the
It
the sort of
happens.
blogosphere or whatever you call it.
Well,
You
it
know.
happens
Mm-hmm.
when you're comfortable and satisfied. But when you want cities, towns, and villages, then you're not satisfied. When you
Uh-huh.
want to get it right so that you can get the cities. And by the
Well,
way, in the Pali, it's called idia, and
idiot.
the real power is the power to be happy, the power to be your own boss, the power to see your own falsehoods, which gives you also the power to see the falsehoods in others.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's the real power, not
That
flying through the air
that
with
I
the
can
greatest
imagine.
of ease and not even have a trapeze.
Well, of course, the trouble with all these things is that, it's rather like they say that in Scotland, there's always sunshine on the next hill but one. And with these iddy or siddhi or whatever you call it, strange powers that people have, it always seems to be a monk in the two monasteries away that's got them. There's always a lot of reports of them. Nobody actually is ever seen doing them.
Absolutely correct. Let's stay with what we can do, what we can see, and stop listening to the stories about
Mm,
far flung places and spectacular things. Let's stay real.
hmm hmm
That in fact, that's one of the big problems with the way that we treat our children is by reading them fairy tales and stories of spectacular things. Teaching the girls that someday their prince will come.
hmm
Teaching the young boys, oh, you've got to be the hero.
Oh, yes.
Tina Turner was right. We don't need another hero.
Yeah. Do you still listen to Tina Turner?
No, I just remember the
Uh,
song. You don't need
uh,
another hero.
I know, I know, I know.
And we don't. We don't need more heroes. We don't need more stories about monks in far flung places doing stupid and far flung and dangerous things in the name of enlightenment. Because that's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is being happy with what you've got, being
Yeah.
lightweight, being awake, so that you can see our defilements and our destructive behaviors and set them aside. That's what enlightenment is. There's two kinds of enlightenment. One is to see it, and the other one is to drop it.
Mm.
Dropping it means that now we're lightweight. Lighten up. Don't get heavy about getting it right. Let's not be the United States Navy or the British Navy.
The British Navy would never write slogans on the back of its ships. Come on. It's your lot
Well,
does
I'm
that.
glad I don't have slogans on my butt, too, or tattoos much of any place.
That's a thought. Somebody with a tattoo on his butt saying, do it right. Well, that gives rise to all sorts of thoughts. Get it, do it right, do it safely. Yeah.
Okay, so you cool off, cool down. Don't worry about getting it right.
Mm.
And just started to enjoy yourself. You've got it. You've got good enough. It's good enough already. Because that feeling of good enough is what brings on that piti and that sukha, is that this is nice. Right here, right now, this is good.
Well, it is, because there is a sense of
How about
fishing.
accomplishment? A sense of accomplishment, a sense of having something
No, the sense
valuable.
of getting it, and this may be useful to people listening. It's a bit like fishing. There's a bit the sort of if you quieten everything down and you just sit there and you know that you wait for the fish to come to the bait. Let's put it that way. You're waiting. You just wait for it to the sort of trigger feeling to arise. If you go looking for it, it's not going to work. But if you have to. Well, it's all metaphor. You have to. You talk about fishing and bait and hooks and all that.
You've
sort of
heard me
thing.
talk about the story
Yeah.
of going into a room with a black cat. If you go looking for that black cat's going to avoid you. If you sit down in the middle of the floor in the darkness, the cat will come to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you sit down in the middle of the floor, metaphorically, and
Mm-hmm.
just enjoy your life, and good things will come.
Oh yeah, that cat. That's cat psychology. The cat is more curious than you are.
Right? That's why let the curious things come to you rather than you being curious chasing them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. It's actually, yeah, it's interesting. I had such an interaction with a cat recently. I went to visit friends, and they had a cat,
Mm-hmm.
and the cat looked at me, and it ran behind a sort of stool, poof thing on the floor, and it kept looking up over at me, and I kept looking at the cat,
To
and
see what you were
eventually,
going to do. The cat was
yeah,
curious. What
and
are
I
you going
just
to do
sat
about
there,
it?
and eventually the cat came over to be petted, the way they do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you sit down on the floor in the opposite direction where the cat is, not facing the cat, you just sit down on the other side, the
Mm-hmm.
cat will probably come around and sit on your lap.
Probably. So
But
there
if you
you
keep
are.
looking at the cat, that's what predators do,
Yeah,
is they
cat doesn't
stalk
like it.
their prey. So don't look at the cat.
Cat doesn't like it.
Cat
Yeah,
doesn't like it when you look at him.
yeah. So that's another thing you can do. Think of a cat.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's go ahead and finish this up. I think that you've gotten the point again.
Again,
To stop
until
having.
the next time.
It's just to chill, just to cool off, just to sit. You had it's good enough.
Yeah.
Let it be good enough.
Okay. Well, thanks for all of that.
All
Thanks
right.
for all of that.
I'm really glad to see you again.
Well, that's very nice of you. Yes. Glad to see you again too. You are full of common sense. But that's
Mm-hmm.
what's so counterintuitive about it, because this is effectively a
Yeah.
religious practice or Be religious.
That's the whole point, that it's not common sense. It's noble, high quality sense.
Yeah.
Common sense is do it the way that you were told to do.
Yeah.
High quality, noble sense is it's already gotten done. Whatever needed to be done has already been done. The job is done now.
Until the next time. Okay, thanks, Dhammarato.
Right.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye.